Welcome to the Printer Prop Shop. I'm Michael. So today was a very quick one. I've actually printed out the Blade Runner badge. So it didn't take much time at all, I can tell you. If you wanted to design this or design your own specific one, you could. It would maybe take you an hour. If you're really quick, maybe in 20 minutes to half an hour. Who knows? But it came out pretty good. I did have my little trouble spots, but as far as filming goes, this would be completely passable on it. And here's how I did it. Okay, I've gone and opened up Chitubox. That's one of my printer's programs for one of my resin printers. And this was actually a little too big to fit on my build plate, so I just kind of put it at an angle. Sometimes I do have a problem with this program auto-filling the supports, but luckily this one came out pretty good. I did have one failure that I just ended up using as a template while this one was actually printing. Again, it came out fairly well. There was one little spot, but I don't think it's too noticeable unless you were to go and have someone really eyeball it. For a movie, I think it worked out just fine. So here I just found some scrap foam I had on hand. I had used it in a different project. This was a little bit of a reach for me because typically when I use foam, I use it as padding. I don't use it as something that's going to be seen. But I did want a holder for this. Not too many detectives would carry around just a regular badge without it being in something. And I wanted it to be an insert, so I made this double layered. And this foam I picked up at Walmart a long time ago. And you can pick it up at Walmart, Hobby Lobby, wherever. It's relatively thin, so it worked out great in the fact that I was going to make this dual layered for that insert. And one thing I learned from Odin was, he does a lot of foam work, he's a great foam smith, is to just have a really sharp knife, and that's what I did here. I had a really sharp knife and used a little square to go and cut. I had that square out because I was building a deck here recently. And here I turned around and took my failed print, and I just traced around it, and then went around that tracing with the knife, and believe it or not, it came out pretty decent. As you can see, the foam insert fit the badge relatively nice, and it's coming along good. And here I've already done a little bit of light sanding, and that's really all it took was some light sanding. It's a resin print, so you typically don't have to do too much sanding on it. But what I'm doing here is just a base coat of silver. I actually took some silver pearl with a little bit of black just to darken it up because I didn't want it gold. I think I've done way too much in gold here lately. And I wanted it to be a silver, but not bright silver, if that makes any sense. I wanted it to be more of a gunmetal. And that's kind of the effect I got. And again, too, this is just a base coat. So as you can see, I didn't really primer anything. And typically when it comes to resin prints, I don't really primer too much. My resin prints are more going to be for showpieces. And if I was making a movie that needed a detective, then this would work out just fine for that length of that movie, I believe. So while that's drying, I wanted to take this opportunity to do a little work on the badge holder. The foam was relatively dirty for one, and then some of my cuts weren't perfect, so I wanted to sand those down to match up with the other layer, and then round off the corners a little bit. After this, I did throw on a coat of Plastidip, and Plastidip works great on foam. If you watch any kind of foam smith like Odin or anything like that, they use Plastidip on foam a lot. Take the naphtha and smooth it out after that. But other than that, it does sand relatively easy. So the base coat's now pretty dry, so I decided I wanted to go over it with some black and take those lettering with some black rather than go in and try to hand paint them or try to do a wash technique that may fill them in. I wanted it to just kind of stand out, and I figured I could spray back over it with the silver, which would even impact it a little bit more as looking like gunmetal as opposed to just silver. And I shaded a couple of areas that I thought would work. And then here I'm going back over it with the silver and black that I mixed together. I did make a little bit more. It didn't take a whole lot more, just enough to knock off a lot of that black that was on top and avoid hitting the lettering. So you could still see the black coming through, but it just kind of made it look a little bit more tarnished, if that makes any sense, rather than having just shaded black. And came out fairly well. So I'm always going to say this whenever you see me with this on camera. If you're using naphtha or any kind of chemical like that, make sure you're in a well-ventilated area, you have a fan going, or you're wearing a respirator, something of that nature. But what I do is I put it on a paper towel, I rub it on, and then just get enough on there, and then use my thumb or finger to rub on it. This also works if you looked at one of my previous videos. I did it on an actual PLA print. Odin has told me don't use it on ABS, so I have a tendency to believe what he says because he's usually right. He knows his stuff, but it smooths it out as best as you need it, that plastic dip, and after that you're good to go. So typically you want to spray paint outside. I did my next best thing and opened up the door, had the fan going as well, and I wanted to spray on my gloss coat on my badge. Unfortunately it's raining in South Carolina today, so that was what I had to do today.
So guys, that's how I did it. Really quick, really simple. I can tell you if you needed this to film tomorrow, you would be able to actually print this up, make it, and have it ready to go for production by 7 a.m. It would be that easy. So here it is, the Blade Runner. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.